She's a heart-centered musician and dedicated meditator. Ari is an award-winning classically trained violinist, independent recording artist, sound healing facilitator, and a proud member of Miami's very own New Deco Ensemble. She has worked with Andrea Bocelli, Bobby McFerrin, Josh Groban, Gloria Estefan, Josh Bell, you name it.
And out of nowhere, one performance, I started playing and my arm just got choked up. And I was like, ooh, this is a new feeling. And it honestly really scared me because I had never experienced not being in my body and not feeling relaxed in my body on stage. And so that was, I would call it the impetus to my initiation to my spiritual path, because basically I started to learn how powerful the mind is, right? So because of that one performance, my mind started expecting it to happen again and again. So it started happening more and more.
So for me, Ari was playing at Miami Made, which is this Miami local entrepreneurs network that we're both a part of. And she led a meditation and it touched me. I had tears in my eyes from her walking around playing. And I said, I need to meet this girl and understand, because I knew that she was more than just a violinist. I could feel the energy that she was bringing and that it was just coming through her.
So our whole mission is to have people receive music directly as vibrational medicine instead of thinking about it and staying in the head.
Wow. So beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. Welcome back to the Stage for Living podcast. I'm not even going to play my sound tools this morning because you are just bringing us in. Welcome, Ari.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So this is Ari Urban. Is it Urban or Urban?
Urban.
Urban. So this is Ari. I'm welcome here today by violinist Ari Urban. She's a heart-centered musician and dedicated meditator. Ari is an award-winning classically trained violinist, independent recording artist, sound healing facilitator, and a proud member of Miami's very own New Deco Ensemble. She has worked with Andrea Bocelli, Bobby McFerrin, Josh Groban, Gloria Estefan, Josh Bell, you name it. She has worked with so many beautiful people, so many amazing artists through her career. And she has created The Art of Being Human, a groundbreaking experience that fuses guided meditation, channeled violin music, and sound healing. We are here to talk about music as medicine. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So tell us, what put you on the path first of music and playing the violin?
So I was in elementary school and a violin teacher came and offered free lessons.
Wow.
And basically everyone in the class took her up on the offer, and like flies, everyone just started quitting within a week because it's a pretty awkward instrument, but it was love at first sight for me. And I just instantly knew that that's what I was here to do in this lifetime.
Oh my God. Some people will find out early in age what it is they are supposed to do. And then other people, like myself, we're the hummingbirds. And we try all these different things before we kind of figure out what it is, or we spend our lives trying these different things to then pull together. So that's so beautiful. I find a lot with music, it is a gift that is given very early on and a passion. And I feel God-given gifts that are given.
Absolutely.
You know, it's not like you just picked it up and you knew how to play, but there was something that was really connecting you to this instrument. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And then when did you decide this would be your career? I mean, sometimes it's just a hobby, right? And other times we have to go forward.
Right. I'm really lucky and grateful that my mom was so supportive. I have a twin brother. He was in acting. I think she recognized our love and our passion for these different art forms and just fully supported, private lessons and orchestra rehearsals. I think in high school, it was very clear that that's what I was going to do. And then I started looking, at colleges for violin performance. And
where did you think, and now you're in this world with music and meditation. Where did you think you were going? Did you think you were going to be playing in a symphony?
That's such a great question. I had a Russian private teacher in high school who's an incredible player, and he really wanted me to do competitions. So I did a few solo competitions in the classical world, and I realized at 15 that it didn't fulfill me. The idea of standing in front of a 100-piece orchestra and not even looking at them or interacting with them didn't nourish me. So I say that to say that I really had to follow my intuitive knowing. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew that I wanted to continue playing music. I also want to name that I was so grateful to go to New World School of the Arts, shout out.
Here in Miami.
Here in Miami, downtown Miami. And while I was there, I learned how to improvise in jazz. I also played tangos and bluegrass. So I think the exposure to different genres at a young age kept my mind open to what was possible. I think when I was at for undergrad, there was an orchestra there called the Henry Mancini Institute Orchestra. And that's where I really started to get exposed to a lot of the amazing musicians that you named earlier. And it was through that experience that I was like, oh, I definitely don't want to just be in the classical world. And I think the moment that really solidified that knowing was when I was in Chicago. I was in this orchestra that was essentially a training orchestra under the Chicago Symphony. And so we would get to see them rehearse, like privately. And I just remember this moment looking at them on stage, and I was like, is this really the dream? And again, no shade to the classical world. I'm so grateful that's where I come from. And I just noticed that there was no sense of camaraderie. There was no sense of like true community and joy, but I just wasn't feeling that. So I think that was a moment that I knew I wasn't going to go the orchestral route, just because you really have to be so dedicated to want to go that route. It's so hard to get those types of positions. I also want to name that I was so grateful to work with Yo-Yo Ma. He was our creative director at this orchestra I just mentioned. And so when I was there, it was actually a talk that he was having with a Chicago-based artist named Theaster Gates, who at that time, this was 11 years ago, he was transforming abandoned houses in the south side of Chicago to become these cultural community centers, whether it be a library or an open space for live music. And I'm like getting emotional because I remember watching them speak and really asking us as young musicians, what are you going to do for your community? How are you going to show up and serve beyond just playing on stage? And it really struck me to my core. And that was the moment that I went up to Yo-Yo and basically pitched him this idea that I had to combine mindfulness and music for my colleagues to deal with audition nerves, because that's something in school we were never trained on. So that was the beginning of everything. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And wow, Yo-Yo Ma, could you not have the most famous, man to be a mentor? This is, to me, this is where God lays the work and lays the path for you.
Absolutely.
And put you in that opportunity to be under his tutelage and to have the knowing and the confidence to ask those questions. That's so powerful at that age that you weren't afraid to ask the questions for your future. So, wow, in your teens, it sounds you already knew, or maybe you were in your early 20s, about mindfulness. So where did that path come into your life?
It was 2011. I was 20 years old in Vipiteno, Italy, which is on the Austrian border, at a music festival with my string quartet. Never in my life had I had any issues performing, and out of nowhere, one performance, I started playing and my bone just got choked up. And I was like, ooh, this is a new feeling. And it honestly really scared me because I had never experienced not being in my body and not feeling relaxed in my body on stage. And so that was, I would call it the impetus to my initiation to my spiritual path, because basically I started to learn how powerful the mind is, right? So because of that one performance, my mind started expecting it to happen again and again. So it started happening more and more. And I didn't know how to regulate my thoughts so that I wasn't self-creating this self-fulfilling prophecy. So I found, it's called the Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction Program. John Kabat-Zinn he's an American doctor. That was a course that I found when I was 20, and it was an 8-week course. And that was the beginning of learning how to observe my thoughts, realizing that I'm not my thoughts, learning to observe the mind-body connection. It really was really powerful, and it still kept happening. And I realized that the body keeps the score, right? And so it wasn't just in my head. I needed to make this connection to the body. And so I started exploring somatic therapies in my early 20s. I basically became obsessed with everything personal development and self-growth because I had to, right? I was on a full scholarship at Miami at U, and it felt like I need to figure this out or else everything I do is,
Well, that's so interesting that the pressure just came, that you hadn't been experiencing and it just showed up. So I think that tells our audience this can happen at any point. Yesterday's podcast, we were talking about anxiety and how I never thought I had anxiety. And then someone explained something to me and it was like, oh, wow, I do have that. Mm-hmm. I do have anxiety. Like we were talking about going to an event alone, right? And I'm a very social person, but I could get some social anxiety about showing up by myself. And I never realized that was anxiety. So it's interesting that it just found you in that way. So you did this course and you realized you had tools to calm your nervous system, to be more in your body, to be able to get back into that flow state, right? Because they say with musicians, you're in a flow state. But I guess when you're performing, that's when the anxiety. I'm sure you didn't have that when you were home just practicing.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you for setting up exactly what I wanted to say, because the anxiety was still there. It was getting better, but it felt out of my control. So I started playing for myself, literally. I started closing my eyes at home in my room and just playing and seeing what wanted to come through and improvising. And I quickly realized that I was soothing my nervous system as I was playing for myself, not playing someone else's music, not reading someone else's music, not playing for anyone else, but really doing it for Ari. And that really was the game changer, because what I realized is when I close my eyes, there's no anxiety, because I'm tuning into my inner world and I'm tuning into my soul and my heart and what it wants to say. And of course, I love playing other people's music, but at that point, I think I was 25, that was really, my soul was calling me to start creating my own music. And I hadn't done that up until that point. I had improvised with other people, but I hadn't seen myself as an artist. I was still in Chicago at the time, and I started playing with myself. And then I found some producers who were also sound healers. And the universe just like brought the perfect people into my life to show me that I'm here to create music as well for self-healing and for soothing the body. Yeah.
So what happened next? You were 25. When did you finish these programs? What was your first job?
So I was a freelancer throughout Chicago, and I was lucky that I could work while I was still in school. So I got my master's at DePaul University, and then I was also in this training orchestra I mentioned. So the orchestra was like a main job at that point, but it really was that meeting with Yo-Yo Ma. I felt like he gave me the blessing that I felt like I needed at that young age to do something new. From there, I just continued playing. I started working with a producer who I still work with to this day. A lot of my released music is a collaboration between me and Preston Click. And then I was also in a studio orchestra in Chicago, so that's where I got to play with Kirk Franklin and John Legend and Chronix and just so many incredible players. And I love playing in studio orchestras because there's this intensity, because you have to come in and sight read everything perfectly. There's no room for error. And so I really love doing that. So yeah, I was making music. I was in the Matt Jones Orchestra, playing with incredible artists and playing all around Chicagoland. And then COVID hit. Yeah.
So what happened next for you? I feel like that was really a pivot for you. It was a pivot for a lot of people in life, for sure. COVID. So where were you?
2020, I'm in Florence, Italy. The day before Italy gets shut down, and I get a call. So the conductor of the orchestra I play with here, New Deco Ensemble, good friend Giacomo Byros, he called me to teach mindfulness at Young Arts for their week-long intensive. So because of him, I was back in Miami. I literally got out a day before it shut down, and then I was here. And so I did that program with him. I was subletting my friend's place because I lived in Chicago at the time still. And then 3 weeks later, my stepdad passed away, and I won a name. His name was Joseph Adler, and he was considered the godfather of South Florida theater. He was the director of Gable Stage in Coral Gables. And so I just want to name, he was an incredible influence in my life as an artist. And he passed away. And then I moved in with my mom temporarily to be with her. Then I got a place on the beach, on South Beach for a year. And then I felt a call to go back to Italy because my really good friend and business partner has lived there for 35 years. She's American, but she's a healer and body worker. And I met her in 2019. I was in Florence doing another retreat separate from her, and I needed a massage. My back was killing me, and she was recommended. I mean, as soon as she put her hands on my body, she read that I had a twin brother. She read my producer, Preston. And so it was this instant click. She was a songwriter for years. She also owns a sync and licensing company for TV and film music. So it was just like all the synchronicities were insane. Fast forward, I went back to stay with her so that we could build this project that we now have called Music Free My Heart. So we host music and meditation workshops and retreats all over Tuscany. And that's really my heart and my mission. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about those retreats.
So initially we thought our target audience would be really experienced meditators, but we quickly found that actually people who had never experienced or practiced meditation, but were interested in learning how to be more present, those were the people coming. And it was cool because they didn't have any preconceived ideas, or they weren't stuck in their head the way we expected them to be, if that makes sense. So essentially, at our retreats, we use music as the object of meditation. And my partner, Carolyn Barron, she has been a Vipassana meditator for 40 years, and she's also managed retreats for her teachers to come to Tuscany. So she really understands how to guide others on how to work with their mind, how to work with direct sensation. So our whole mission is to have people receive music directly as vibrational medicine instead of thinking about it and staying in the head in an intellectual state, because that's how the healing can happen, right? When we surrender to presence and to actually feeling, oh, I'm feeling the music as heat, like in my chest, or as tingles, right? That's where things can move and start to transmute. So that's really our goal with the music. And it's incredible because people have such unique experiences. And I love that music is so inherently mysterious in a way in terms of how it impacts the body. Some people remember past lives. Some people have their ancestors visit them. Some people have out-of-body experiences. Some are very in the body. It's like there's a full range. And she's such an expert in what she does that us coming together and doing that, it's a really special thing.
That's so beautiful. So it's frequency and vibration. Okay, we all know that energy is everywhere and we're made up of energy and water. If you play music over water, put water in my sound bowls and I start playing the sound bowl, the water is going to move, right? And energy will be created and sacred geometry will come out. Mm-hmm. Essentially, when you're playing this music, this vibration is running through our system, right? And you're saying things are moving in the body.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the analogy I love to give is imagining the body as a symphony orchestra, and every cell of the body is an instrument in the orchestra. So just like the orchestra has to tune before they start playing, I see pure sound as the tool to literally retune the body and harmonize it and have it come into coherence on a cellular level. And then the music acts as this activator for the emotional body to release any stuck emotions, which I think are just energy in motion. They just want to move through. So that's the visual I like to give people so that they can literally see their bodies as this living harmonic symphony.
Yeah. What I love being a sound healer, there's sound tools. They're not musical instruments.
Right.
This is a musical instrument that you're using as a sound tool.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful to me. And as a sound healer, I'm not a musician, but I'm going to start playing the ukulele, but I can't take my sound bowls and play that with an orchestra or play it with someone with a guitar. Mm-hmm. Maybe the chimes a little bit, but like there's a very big difference between sound healing tools and musical instruments, but you're combining them and bringing the musical instrument into being a sound healing tool. Music is healing.
It is.
Some of the stuff that's out there, the heavy, dark stuff, mm-hmm. can change the energy and change how you feel and how you show up, and then more beautiful music and more coherent music that's going to bring your brain and your heart into a coherent state is where that change can happen.
Exactly.
Right? So there are different places that you can go with it. Well, let's go back to, you said that you realized you were having the performance anxiety, and so were your colleagues. So where did you start helping them before you even got into knowing that you were going to do this into a sound healing? Was it the course and you started to share that with them?
Things got redirected in a way that I didn't expect, but that was the first course that I created was for classical musicians. And I did get to have some friends as guinea pigs to try it. Civic Orchestra said they were going to support that project. It didn't end up going through, and that was fine. I was only there for a 2-year fellowship. So by the time I graduated, the timing hadn't worked out. So then that's when I really started getting more into sound healing and using that medium and realizing that I didn't want to stay in the classical world because it's in its own little bubble, right? I started expanding my desire of wanting to be more accessible, wanting my music to be more accessible. And I think that was a real impetus of me wanting to leave the classical world and not just be in that environment.
Would you say that's when music went from music to medicine?
For me, yeah. And then I was really grateful for all the time I had during COVID, because that's when I really went deep into recording really consistently. And I started releasing a single every month. So I was keeping myself accountable to wanting to share this new music that I was creating. It's hard to explain to people, but it's like, when I improvise, it doesn't feel like Ari. I become an instrument of the divine to channel whatever wants to come through me. And so when I listen to the music, sure, I'm like, okay, that's me, but it doesn't feel like it's me, if that makes sense.
It makes sense to me. I don't know if everyone will understand it, but it makes sense to me. You get into a flow state where it feels like it's coming through you, not from you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So once I started experiencing that flow state, it was so magical. And I was honestly just so pleasantly shocked at what was coming through me. And I'm so grateful again to my producer who crafted these songs to allow me to see what we could create together.
What genre are they released under?
Great question. It's the hardest thing to put something in a box that's so formless. But we have put our music both under world and under new age. I think now world feels more appropriate. None of the labels really fit, but because it's instrumental and all of our songs, there's also no through line with even the instrumentation. So some songs are like me and flamenco guitar. Some are like me and piano. Some are me and handpan. Different combinations. You kind of traverse a lot of different worlds within the music, which I love.
I think we need to create its own genre for this, right? I mean, Sanatam Kaur, who's a Kundalini singer, was nominated for a Grammy in 2019.
Yeah.
Right? So there is a place for this, and maybe we need a new genre for it. Why is inner harmony required for outer change? I feel like the music, we're talking a lot about in the body. So how do you see that this inner can help the outer?
The first thing coming to mind is simply nervous system regulation, right? If we're dysregulated within ourselves, then at least for myself, I can say I cannot show up at full capacity the way I want to. So I think taking care of our inner world is so vital to be able to show up in the world with resilience. And I almost see it as like this protection / superpower when we can really stay in our center. And that's going to look different for each one of us, right? Our practices, our rituals, whatever it is that keeps us feeling connected to a sense of grounded, centeredness. So for me, it's breathing and it's Vipassana meditation. That's really the foundation of my daily practice. And that
Will you explain to our audience what Vipassana meditation is?
So Vipassana meditation is the type of meditation that the Buddha experienced and created when he was on his way to enlightenment. So it's really about observing our experience as humans. So there's a sense of disidentification and detachment and that's really what helped me in my 20s with the performance anxiety. Instead of feeling like I became the thoughts of anxiety, I would observe them and say, okay, that's what my mind is doing right now. And then I could use my breath or sound or music to come back to the present moment. I have a very active mind, as we all do. Vipassana meditation, literally just observing my mind every day as if I'm an outside observer, allows me to have a higher level of governance and control over where my mind goes. And that provides a sense of true autonomy, I guess you could say, where I know that I can control where my presence is, as opposed to feeling like the mind is running my experience.
Yeah. Now, I know Vipassana is a silent meditation, but this is so interesting because a lot of people say, I can't meditate, I can't get out of my mind. But what you're doing with Vipassana is you're actually observing your mind.
Exactly.
So it's like, stop beating yourself up, sit in silence and listen to those thoughts. Ask questions about those thoughts. Let those thoughts go, would you say?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you for naming that. That's it. And I teach meditation to young musicians. And I was just working with an orchestra this weekend, and I told them, you guys, meditation is not about shutting down the mind. That's impossible because we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. It just ain't gonna happen. It's like a machine. Exactly. And so when we can realize that, okay, the goal is not to, and of course we can get into thoughtless states, and that's pleasurable and really nice. But the practice is really, it's the returning, right? It's knowing, okay, my mind's going to wander. I'm going to be going a million different places. And then it's the returning to the breath. And that's the beauty, is that you can use different objects. So for me, I use the breath as the main kind of return point because it's very visceral and grounding for me. You could use music. That's the beauty of it, is that you can use different objects to return to, but it really is observing it and letting go. Observing your thoughts like clouds in the sky, right? You're not going to follow a cloud for like 10 minutes. Maybe you follow it for 5-10 seconds and then you let it go. And then, oh, a new one. Okay. But it's that detachment that gives us, at least me, a sense of freedom and power to choose where my mind goes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's that detachment from those thoughts, because you don't want to sit there and go on a tangent and follow. Like you're saying, we don't want to take one thought and we're just sitting with that and following that thought. It's like, okay, let it pass.
Exactly.
You know, this came through. Let's not harp on it. Let's not analyze it. Let's just go. And let's start picturing rainbows and clouds and see what comes in.
Yeah. And I want to say it's such a humbling practice because I've been doing it. I mean, this has been my practice for 13 years now. And I still have days where I'm just totally
Mine's just going,
you
right?
know, and I'm like, okay. And I just got sucked into that thought for maybe 3 minutes, who knows? And then it's the returning. So it's also having grace and self-compassion that we are human and we're not meant to be this, like, I don't know, I'm a recovering perfectionist.
I was just, we're not perfect. Yeah.
Coming from the classical world where everything was based, like your value as a musician was based on technical perfection. And so I'm still undoing that. And I'm so grateful to my practice because it really helps.
I think that's really a beautiful note for musicians, right? And how even if they are not a musician that's doing meditation in the world and bringing what you're bringing, say they are a musician in an orchestra, how beneficial meditation can be to them, to their performance and to their everyday life, right? So they can get rid of those anxiety feelings and those fearful feelings of not being perfect and be able to just be. So let's talk a little bit about community. So when you were talking about being a part of an orchestra, the question that came to me was about performing with people or performing alone. But really what you get into is bringing people together. So let's talk about community and the importance of community when it comes to healing, when it comes to meditation, when it comes to music.
Yes. I would love to open this with mentioning the Art of Being Human, which is my offering. And I'll get into what it is exactly in a minute. But that offering came to my mind during 2020. The Knight Foundation here in Miami was having an open call for artists to reimagine the concert experience during COVID, since we couldn't physically be together. So that really inspired this new setup where the original concept was a small intimate concert on a rooftop. Everyone's in their own kind of bubble. There's plants in between everyone so that they feel like they have the privacy and safety to go within their inner world, but still be a part of something bigger than themselves. So essentially the Art of Being Human is, you can imagine if a classical violin concert and a sound healing session had a baby. That's what it is. It's a combination of using music and sound, not as entertainment, but as medicine. And so I have people lie down and close their eyes so that they are not distracted by me or the outer world, but really using the music as a guide to go into their inner world and just, again, observe and explore what's happening, right? What's coming up emotionally? Is it bringing up memories? What's happening physically? Because we couldn't physically be together during that time, I was imagining the future and how music can bring people together in a deeper way. Because as you said earlier, of course, it's inherently healing, and it's inherently one of the most magical things we have on this earth to bring people together. Because it was such an intense time, and I was grieving, my stepdad, and we were all grieving our lives as we knew them, right? We were all in a lot of fear as well of the unknown, of being in this new moment of really not being able to predict the future. And so I really wanted to honor that and honor the grief that we were all experiencing as a collective. And so I really wanted the community piece to be around normalizing, all of our human emotions and normalizing shared vulnerability and intimacy. So not only is it a concert, but then afterwards people share their experiences. And as simplistic as that may sound, it is so powerful, not only to witness and hear others and their experiences and how unique they all are, but for us to practice and hold space for each other as being fully human and not negating certain emotions because we're taught that we should feel shame around them or whatever it may be. Really acknowledging the full spectrum of being human. And we're emotional beings, right? And I think in my experience, in the Western world, at least, we're taught in society to only show certain emotions and only feel like we can show certain emotions. So I really want that experience to give people permission to be more vulnerable and see that as a true strength instead of a weakness.
It's beautiful. And it's interesting because I was going to ask you about integration, and what you just described, that after that sharing is integration. And that's very important in the spiritual world, especially when you're in group healings, is to have an integration. When we do a breath work day and it's a 1 hour, 2 hours of breath work, we then circle up and people share their experiences, and we all learn from the shared experiences. We all heal from the shared experiences. And even if somebody comes and they have an experience and they don't want to share, but hearing someone else shares makes them feel okay. That what they experienced was right or good or similar.
Yeah, that we're not alone.
We're not alone. Yeah. Music brings us together, and now to bring it together in a healing way, I just think this is amazing. And I want to see you doing this in a large scale and in a big platform. So for me, Ari was playing at Miami Made, which is this Miami local entrepreneurs network that we're both a part of. And she led a meditation and it touched me. I had tears in my eyes from her walking around playing. And I said, I need to meet this girl and understand, because I knew that she was more than just a violinist. I could feel the energy that she was bringing and that it was just coming through her and through the violin. And it touched my heart. So thank you for this work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anything we're missing that we want to cover? There was a deep dive question we had here.
Yeah.
Let's see what that deep dive question was. And I think I want everybody to hear this, because there's something going on in your life or has gone on in your life. What part of you had to heal before you could let your music to become medicine?
So I'm going to give a little story that will explain this. I was playing in 2018 in Tokyo, Japan, as the guest American concertmaster with the Tokyo Philharmonic, playing with Yoshiki, who was like this rock star in the 80s. And my anxiety was still pretty present. I was still on my healing journey, but it was still there. And I was 25 at that time, and it was the biggest kind of high pressure situation I'd been in. And so I was on stage. And usually what would happen when I was on stage and I would get tight, my body would freeze, I would start shaming myself, right? My inner critic would come on. Oh my gosh, I can't believe, again, really? And I had such negative self-talk. And in this specific performance, the discomfort and the paralysis got so intense, I started experiencing vertigo. I literally thought I was about to tip over. And so there was this moment, and I know it was divine intervention, and I'm getting emotional because it was like my higher self / God, goddess coming through and saving me in that moment. And all I started hearing was, I love you, Ari. I love you, Ari. I love you, Ari. I love you, Ari. Like a mantra, and it just kept repeating. And slowly my body started to relax, not completely, but enough to finish the concert. And it was so profound because it was like God speaking to my inner child, saying, you are okay. And it is okay that you're scared. And that was really the impetus for me to do a deep dive in inner child work. And that really was the key for me truly healing it. The mindfulness helped, the somatic therapy helped, but it was the inner child work, getting to know little Ari, that 5-year-old that was on stage saying, I don't feel safe to be seen, and really going deep in that work with practitioners and with incredible facilitators that help me reconnect to her so that I can bring her on stage with me and say, I got you, like you're safe, instead of leaving her out on her own to kind of fend for herself, if that makes sense. So 2018, that concert was the moment I said, okay, we got to do the work now. This is the next level. And I'm still on that journey with my inner child. It's never ending. And I'm going to be starting a project soon with her, with different ages of little Ari, and seeing what songs she wants to bring through for her. So
thank you for bringing that up, because we don't really talk a lot about the inner child, or maybe in the spiritual world we do, but I want people to hear that and understand that you abandoned yourself as a child. Things happened as a child that have affected you today that you just don't even realize it. So we go back and we make friends with this child. We talk to this child from our adult self to that child's self. And I love that you want to take her on stage in those different facets of your life and different times of your life, and see what she went through and transform that for her. Yes. And for her to see you now. I mean, I love this. I think of my inner child. I was hit by a car when I was 5. I suffered a lot of physical trauma. And I've never seen that as an issue in my life, but personally in my body, it has always affected me. My hips are uneven. There's little things that have happened. But if I can go back to her and protect her and let her know she's going to be okay, she's still going to run and play, or she's still going to do yoga, she's still going to be this amazing woman hosting this podcast, yes. It helps to release. We can release from the past in the present. And maybe that's hard to hear, but we can release things from the past in the present through work like this with the inner child. Mirror work, there's so much, but it's having that wanting, knowing, and accepting. Yes. And willingness. Yes. To change, because we're not going to change unless we do what we call the work. Yes. Yeah.
That was so beautiful. And it is so important to shift the way we speak to ourselves. Again, my inner critic is very active. So it's not that it goes away, but we can rebalance what voice gets more airtime, and it's a delicate balance, right? In the spiritual community, we talk about self-love a lot. I think it's a combination of self-curiosity about our inner world, curiosity around self-inquiry, self-observation, self-compassion, and self-accountability. We need all three, because, there were periods where I had to go deep into the self-compassion alone, but then I had to take accountability for still how I was showing up in the external, right? So it's always a delicate balance and dance, but really at the end of the day, my work is here to help people befriend themselves and to create an inner world that is more peaceful than disharmonious. And again, coming back to what we were speaking about earlier, our experience of our inner world and how we relate to the different parts within ourselves are going to reflect in how we respond to the outer world. And I think if we can find as much inner peace, truly, that's the ripple effect. And each one of us, if we choose to say yes to the call, have that duty, and that's how we're going to change this world, one heart at a time. And again, that seeing every person we meet as a part of ourselves. That's what I'm realizing these days more and more. And it's beautiful.
And the more we heal, the more we come in community and more we shed that. Thank you for saying the ripple effect, because that is when we work on ourselves, it is for that ripple effect of how it affects everybody else. We're not healing ourselves so we can heal the world. We're healing ourselves so individually the change within us helps change people around us. Right? We're not asking you to go and change everybody else. We're asking you to work on yourself, and just you doing that work, and you shift who you are and how you show up for your friends, your family, your community, your work, in traffic, and it starts to change. Right? And it ripples through. One of our guests, she said, a ripple can cause a tsunami. And
I
all we
love
need to
that.
do is be that one little ripple, that one little drop in the ocean of change.
Yes.
I love it. Do you find that other musicians now are wanting to get into this work and switch their performance to maybe getting into more of music as medicine?
That's a good question. I'm not seeing a lot of that in my direct experience. I'm sure it's happening around the globe. I think specifically instrumentalists, not singers, are kind of going that route naturally. Like this week, we have a new deco show at the bandshell on Thursday night, and we're playing with this Pakistani singer named Aruj Aftab. And I was listening to her music last night, and it was so transportive, you know. And she sings and uses lyrics, but I think there's naturally, as the world continues to evolve, if that makes sense, I think it's just coming together more seamlessly. Maybe not as intentionally as I'm doing it, or as obviously of like having people lie down instead of watching, for example, but it's still having, I do see artists using it in a more, I guess, soundscapey way, to put a word to it that could describe it best.
Yeah, because there's no lyrics. This is just the music. This is instrumental. Between sound healing and musical healing, it's all instrumental.
Exactly. And I wanted to say that earlier, the power of instrumental music as opposed to lyrics, which I love lyrics, obviously. But when we listen to words, it activates the mind, right? Yeah. Because they're words. So we start thinking, oh, that lyric, or, oh, I can relate to that. And then we get stuck in the duality of the head. And the whole mission with Music Free My Heart is to get people out of the duality of the head and into the unity of the heart, because the heart is unity, you know, it's unity consciousness. And when we live more from the heart, instead of thinking, oh, I like that, I don't like that, or having opinions about things, which again, we're going to all have opinions, but I think the practice of not living from the mind all the time, especially since we live in a society that almost only praises intellect, which is beautiful and important. I just think we're in a moment of rebalance, and we need to get back into the body, and instrumental music is an incredible tool to get back into the body.
Yeah, like I do. I agree with you. There are people very disconnected from their bodies. They don't realize that. I talk a lot about grounding, but music can be grounding as well. And you're right, because when there's lyrics, we start to judge the lyrics. Did I say, is that the right word? Why did he say that? Oh, what does that mean? And when I teach yoga, and the yin yoga or restorative yoga or kundalini yoga, either it's a mantra that's a repetitive thing because it's a vibrational thing in a mantra, or it's just instrumental, because we don't want to disrupt the mind and get the mind going in a way. And you're right, music can flow through the body. Are there different frequencies or vibrations that you play with? Is the violin set at a certain frequency That's
a great question. So in the classical world, we tune to 440. I won't get too much into it, but essentially 432 is the original tuning that is in coherence with the vibration of the earth. So 432 hertz is really a naturally healing frequency. And so when I do my sound healings, I do tune my violin down to 432, and it does make a difference. And people can feel it because it's in resonance with the vibrations of the body and of the earth that we are a part of. Yeah.
I love hearing that and knowing that. And I just want to let our audience know, if you go somewhere like Spotify or Apple Music and you put in 432 hertz, you'll get music and meditations or whatnot, frequencies to play. That helps to heal the body. Do you guys know the tuning of the radio is very specific, so we don't get those frequencies? Maybe you have to be a conspiracy theorist on this, but you really don't. If you go and do some research around frequency and what the world has put out for frequencies and what it naturally should be is different. Like they are causing disruption in us. So look for those frequencies, listen to it when you're driving, find Ari's music on Spotify, listen to it when you're cooking and you're being around the house and when you go to bed. Personally, what helps me so much, I love television, and to force myself off the screen at night, I say, Alexa, play Deep Sleep Meditation by Spotify. I'm not even sure what the hertz is on that, but whatever it is, it knocks me out and I sleep throughout the night in a very peaceful state. If I leave the TV on, I leave my computer open and it doesn't matter what's on, that is so disruptive. I wake up a lot and I'll hear it and then it goes into my dreams. But I find if I put on a high frequency, a theta, a deep brain wave of sleep, that it helps me sleep better. I wake up feeling more rested and more
100%.
connected to myself.
100%. I'm so glad that you just said that and shared that. It's true. And something I wanted to name was entrainment. Entrainment is the process of our bodies adapting to whatever the dominant frequency is in a room. We're doing that constantly. Any space we're in, we are adapting. We're tuning into the dominant frequency. And so it's so important. You're absolutely right. We all have the freedom of choice, right? And it could be the morning, it could be evening, it could be on a break, to put on frequencies that will literally bring us back into alignment. And I feel that too. I really do. And I also play with different frequencies and different music to get me into states that help me really relax and wind down after being so activated by the external world.
Right? Yeah. Oh, I love that. And this is just bringing a new perspective for me of classical music. And I've heard, I don't even remember something I was reading, or maybe even was Dr. Joe, of playing classical music when they would study. There's a lot of information out there about how classical music really does calm the nervous system, and people perform better, study harder, learn more when they play that, opposed to the teenagers today who are playing this like heavy rap.
Yeah.
I listen to the music of my daughter and her friends, and sometimes I'm like, oh my God, my nervous system, this is a lot. And then, I have to change it to bring myself down. And for me, I'm getting more into music. I find sometimes I'm in silence. I'll be driving in the car with no music playing.
Yeah.
And I'm just in my thoughts, or I'm just in the traffic, or I'm watching the beauty of what's around us here in Miami.
Yes.
But I find music can change everything.
It does. And I want to speak to that. That is so true about different music evoking different states within us. And I have a part of me that's naturally very melancholic, you can say, right? Like I love sad music. I love creating sad music, if you want to call it that. And so with that being said, I think it's important for us to just be aware that we are in training, right? AKA tuning ourselves to whatever we're listening to. And so having that awareness is important so that we can choose. For example, if you're going through a breakup, listening to sad music will help you move through that, right? Up until a certain point when you might say, okay, I'm ready for something else. Because what I'm trying to say is the entrainment, it will kind of sink deeper into the fascia, into the body, if we're listening to specific music that evokes certain emotions within us. And I think more research is coming out to show that people can get stuck in certain emotional states if they're listening to a certain type of music regularly. And so again, it's amazing because we have the power to choose, and we can consciously, intentionally, okay, I want to feel certain emotions. Like sometimes if I'm feeling disconnected from my emotions and I want to open up, I will put on certain music that I know will crack my heart open or will bring the tears. But I'm doing it in a conscious way for the sake of transmuting density, if that makes sense. We can wallow. I mean, wallowing is great too, but really just being aware of that music really is so powerful in how it affects our emotional state and how we're feeling in general.
And good and bad, right?
In both ways.
In both ways. You could listen to music that's going to incite your anger, or it's going to make you sad. I love it. And what you were saying reminds me of like how I hear all the time to dance, and how great it is in the morning. You want to get your energy going. You put on that dance music,
yes,
and you raise your energy to help start your day.
Yes,
and to move the body. Movement is medicine, and music is medicine. Anything else you want to touch on that we've missed? You want to make sure we get out there to our audience?
I think I feel complete. Yeah, in terms of promo, I mean, Spotify. My music's on all streaming platforms.
Which is amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, under Ari Urban, everywhere.
And then you can see her performing here in Miami at New Deco. The Art of Being Human, they can find online as well. We talked about before we started doing an event here at the house in April or May, where we'll do all her sound tools and my sound tools together to bring everyone to just a state of bliss. We're here to help people live happier lives and live life more aligned. All right, will you play us out?
Yes. And thank you for having me.
Yes.